me get this on the right slide here. Common knowledge. So what is common knowledge? Why does it matter? So common knowledge is not just that you know I'm standing here. It's that you know that I know that you know ad infinitum. It's a very different thing than just knowing that I'm here. And a classic example of this is the Romanian Revolution in 1989. For years, everyone knew that this dictator, Ceausescu, was a tyrant, but nothing ever happened. And it wasn't until actually a simple act during one of his public speeches, a live broadcast whistle that cascaded into many whistles, that a revolution began. And the key wasn't just that everybody saw, that key was not just that everybody was unhappy, but they saw that everybody else was unhappy. So we've had similar moments in American history. I'm American, so that's my history. But my contention is actually common knowledge is getting harder to get off the ground. And that's because of increasing political polarization. And while political polarization predates the internet, it certainly has been accelerated in the digital age. And why is this so bad? Well, if we can't find common ground, if we can't have shared beliefs, then collective action becomes really hard. And collective action is the stuff for political movements and also for government and legitimate governance. And so on the international stage, this is really important. So unions stay unified and can differentiate their allies from their adversaries and marshal support and not collapse into the chaos of competing narratives, which we seem to be trending towards. And also, common knowledge lets us solve higher forms of cooperation problem, for example, like climate change that requires consensus and agreement about the facts. So since this is DevCon and an Ethereum conference, it's worth acknowledging actually that Ethereum itself is an example of a common knowledge machine. It produces, or it seeks to actually produce an immutable ledger about shared global state. Another obvious example of common knowledge machines are things like Blue Sky, Farcaster, Lens, or X. These are the functional equivalent of public squares, but actually online. But of course, here, common knowledge rarely ever gets off the ground, and instead we just have divisions and competing narratives about reality and which one is true. So today I want to introduce a quick mechanism and outline on the principles to sort of nudge your thoughts, and you can read more if you want in my writings. So the idea is called community posts, and everybody here who participates in some social media platform has some set of followers. And the idea is instead of blasting a post to all of your followers, you first stress test a post across different groups of followers who don't necessarily talk, listen, or agree with one another to gauge what resonates before it's widely shared. And so here's how it works. If you look at your followers, your set of followers, they actually all have differences in behavior measured by their likes, their reposts, who follows them, and who they follow, their connections. And you can aggregate this information about observed behavior using things like zk-snarks and put people in clusters as represented by circles here. And the idea is that you pick a subset of uncorrelated followers on your social graph, people who behave differently on the platform, balanced for reach with a minimum diversification threshold. Now, these polarity subsets aren't an echo chamber. What they are is a sampling or random sampling of a subset of your followers balanced across different perspectives. And there'll be multiple subsets to choose from. For example, you can handpick key anchors or key thought leaders or experts and then diversify against them in different combinations to fill the remaining set. Now, once you pick your subset, you send that post to the subset with a zero knowledge proof confirming that recipients follow you without revealing your identity. Now, some might disagree with the post and send ZK feedback to you, but some might actually take it further and pass it on to subsets, polarity subsets of their followers. And these rounds repeat, forming a tree of polarity subsets across the social graph, which essentially pushes your post across very diverse parts of the social graph, allowing you to gauge cross-tribal appeal at every step and every layer through repost rates and feedback. And of course, the people who receive this get a notification ZK posted by the N people you follow, or N people you follow boosted this post, and so on. Now, the final step is the post goes public. Once it gains enough support across and reaches a diversification threshold, and it's passed its social stress test, and the post goes public, and you can merge into your open feed, and anyone who has reposted it can post it to all their followers, and so on. And then any remaining divides as represented by red here on these red parts of the social graph, you can use community notes, which we're all familiar with, to bridge and add context. And this is really low-hanging fruit divides. So anyways, this is the summary of the mechanism. I think it works because essentially what you're doing is you're reversing the cycle that happens on social media of context collapse, controversy, cancellation, and capture. And these are things where social media leverages divisions to create more divisions, and you reverse that cycle with diversification, discounts, and bridging to restore common ground. OK, I think that's it for 5 minutes. I can take any of your questions. That was kind of a complex mechanism for 5 minutes.
Who wants to ask a question? Who wants to ask a question? Here, please.
This is amazing. What do we do next? What's like a next step here?
Yeah, so there are a lot of experiments with social graphs right now in Web3. Farcaster and Lens are an example. And so you can leverage like ZK snarks, zero-knowledge proofs to actually calculate this information without revealing, the identities and participants in a social graph, and start to engage, create a more meaningful parallel attention feed to show, okay, like what are posts where there's wide agreement on, and instead of focusing on like the attention and the rage bait that comes from a global attention auction, you can focus your attention on, okay, well, what are the things where there's agreement, and then build on that agreement. Yeah.
We can have one more question.
Do you envision this being applicable to like more popular social media, like maybe a plugin for Twitter or whatever?
Yeah, it could apply to any social media. It could apply, it's a roadmap for making X a common knowledge machine. I think that's actually was always the aspiration around a public square. And the Ceausescu example. It's also applicable to TikTok. It's applicable to really any social network. And it's just a more intelligent attention mechanism, right, that gets us, that sort of reverses the cycle of let me hit my dopamine receptors with division towards let me see what I can find common ground with and build on that. OK, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Puya.